Well, welcome everybody. I just wanted to say a few words, as Chris said, about founders and mentors before we go into the funding session and talking about funding. We being myself, Jake Shaw, Christopher Norris, and a group of other philanthropists and entrepreneurs, set up Founders and Mentors right at the beginning of lockdown. So it's quite an apt story. On the day of lockdown, we've been planning this for a while, but we wanted to build our own network of people within the startup system, people at the really early stage of founding a business. So from idea stage to launch, that's the area that we're interested in. And the group of us that are behind this are called 12 Ronnies. And there's I can talk to you about it a bit later on, maybe in the Q&A afterwards, but it's essentially, we believe that that there is no reason why so many startups have to fail. All the stats out there all point towards most startups fail for whatever reason, and fail at different stages. And we fundamentally think that one of the big reasons for startups failing is that they're not prepared to launch properly. They're just not ready to launch. They shouldn't be launching until they've done certain things and got certain things in place. Otherwise, they're out there in quite a dangerous environment to fail. So we decided that in order to get this message across of the sorts of things that we think founders should be doing, we should form our own network, bring people together, and rather than just us as a group evangelize this message, there's a whole ecosystem of mentors out there that are willing to give their time, their experience, their knowledge, and their wisdom to this marketplace. And let's face it, if you're a founder, you're a pre-launch founder, generally you don't have any money at this stage to put towards launching a business. And this is one of the big problems. And we encourage almost all of the founders to concentrate on one thing, which is market testing. They've got an idea, test the assumptions around the idea, and collect data, validate your data. But one of the things that we get all the time when we're asking, well, what are your challenges? What are your challenges? Is funding. It's the most common question of all. I need some money to build product. I need some money to go marketing. I need money or I can't start my business. And actually that's not true. You can do an awful lot of market testing without money. And as a matter of fact, we think that money at the very, very early stage is one of the biggest distractions. And so there's some irony here that the first event that we're going to launch with is about money and about your money options. And it's just to bear in mind that it's not all cases where money is irrelevant at the very early stage. If you've got deep tech innovation, if you've got a strong social purpose, there's options for you. And there's certainly options once you've validated your ideas, which Andrew will talk about. But we really wanted to stress, first of all, us as a group are here really to help startups launch successfully and not make the sort of mistakes that many of us within 12 Ronnies have made in the past, and want to steer people in the right direction for making successful launches. But money is the big issue that everybody asks about. So I think we want to head this question off right now, and Andrew can talk very much about the options that are available. So if I can pass you over to Andrew to talk about the options available, and then after that, myself and Chris will be around to answer any questions you have about founders and mentors, about 12 Ronnies, or about what we're trying to do within this ecosystem.
Okay, Andrew, thank you very much, Simon. I've now given you the floor, so you're able to upload any presentation that you would like to. And so welcome, and we look forward to hearing your talk.
Great. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I was looking to see if I recognized any of the people that are in the audience, but I don't recognize anybody so far. That might change as we go on. What I'm going to try and do is give you a bit of an overview as to who we are, what we do, and all those sorts of things. So I'll give you a quick summary first of all, and then I'll jump in with giving you some slides that will talk through various aspects. If you haven't heard of Swoop, we are a free-to-use system that is approximately 4 years old, 2 years as Swoop and 2 years as BizFly, so 4 years in total. We have around about 70 people in the company. We received a grant last year for 5 million quid under the Bank Recovery Scheme. Part of the reason that we got that grant was it's our stated ambition to make it a level playing field for SMEs up and down the UK. And the clever thing about what we do is that under one roof, somebody is able to look at equity, grants, debt, and savings. So we create a data room, information goes in there, and it might be that now all you're doing is saying, what can I get on the grant side? And as your journey changes and develops, you're going to be looking at other areas. But rather than having to start a new journey, everything's in one place. Whatever you've stored in there is then readily available, and it just makes your life easier. Okay. The reason that it's free to use, very simply, is if we're doing cost-saving work for clients in terms of their banking side, we get paid by providers, the banks. If we are doing equity work, we get paid on a success basis, and no horrible running around, we need to charge you this for doing this, that, and the other. Yep. If we're doing grant work, we get paid on a success basis. And if we're doing debt, we get paid by the providers. And you would have a team member who's looking after you and assisting you as your world changes. So here we go. A screen that shows you a picture of the Swoop system. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview in terms of the current funding landscape, and then talk about how you can use it. What this here is designed to do is, in our experience, people are often very blinkered in terms of the way they look to get the business on to the next stage. We've come across loads and loads of companies who get in touch with us and say, here's our investor deck. We're just looking at equity. We think what we're doing is absolutely fantastic, and we won't look at anything else. But to be able to turn around to that business and say, actually, what you're doing is you're missing a trick, because you could potentially turbocharge your business. Yeah. If we were looking at funding routes at the stage that you're at, yeah, potentially it's going to make it more attractive on the equity side. Assuming that all of you have been around long enough to know that if somebody's looking for equity and they have got a brand new yogurt business and all they're doing is selling to their local corner shop, we know that equity funds are going to go, bugger off. So let's say that yogurt business is making their packaging and the yogurts themselves from some sort of a product that is sustainable, good for the planet, etc., etc. It makes logical sense to check to see if there's any grant potential for that business. It also makes logical sense that if they're beginning to get income coming in from that corner shop, that they at least explore whether they can raise money against that to get a marketing person, which is back to what Simon was saying, marketing person, to get the business to scale. So rather than just being in the corner shop, they can also be an Aldi, Lidl, etc., etc. Running around this diagram, the other day a fund got in touch with us and they said, we are doing a JV with a bread making business, a well-known UK bread grower, bread maker. I turned around to our grants people and said, "Oi, by any chance, are there any grants for people who are in the baking world?" And they went, "Yep, we have a grant specialist person who just specializes in getting grants for baking clients. This is what they've done in the past." Yep. So you should never assume, yep, that there's not going to be something out there. It's always worthwhile looking, and it's free to look. Yep, it kind of makes sense. Okay. If a client jumps onto our site and gives us their investor deck, we would review that deck, work out whether it's good to go now, i.e. the proposition's good, the deck's brilliant, and it would then only go out to appropriate funds. So if the fund is receiving it, they know it's readable and it's only meant for them because they're interested in AI businesses that have got a turnover of between X and Y, geographic location such and such, a number of years old, etc., etc. Okay. If the proposition is not right, i.e. the deck's rubbish, we will politely turn around to somebody and say, this is how you review it, this is how you change it. Okay. On the funding side, you will see there are a range of different funding solutions. A big chunk of the world of funding is, as you're all aware, is things have changed dramatically since the last financial crash, which is when the banks moved out of the funding world and moved back into banking. There are now a massive range of alternative funders who often have very niche solutions that are aimed at working with companies to get them to grow. There's a significant percentage of companies who take out finance who will take out the wrong sort of finance because they will almost put their hand over their face and go, goodness, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to grab the first thing that comes along. So part of the work that we do is checking to see whether somebody, if they have debt, is working out whether it's potentially a more suitable solution, working out what they could get to get them to grow. It could be that they've got some sort of a grant and there's a need for match funding. So we go and get things like asset finance. It could be they're waiting for equity to come through and they just need to bridge the gap until that happens. So we'd be looking to get them some sort of a solution where there's no setup fee and no redemption penalty. It could be that they need money to finish off something like tooling. They've got no sales at present, but they're looking to, there are ways of being able to raise money against the strength and security of what the founders of the business are doing in the background. So never close your mind in terms of what you can do on the funding side. Our system's blind, so we can't weight ourselves to a solution that provides the best possible route. And I can come back to particular bits on this if we have questions later on. Everyone is aware that the government has jumped in quite dramatically in terms of finding funding solutions. On the bounce back loans and CBILS, something like 750,000 companies have taken out bounce back loans and CBILS who had not historically had any sort of debt in the business. The numbers of companies that are continuing to apply for CBILS and bounce back loans is staying pretty constant. It's still about 100,000 companies a month that are applying for, so not a month or a week. That's a week that are applying for CBILS. We're able to guide companies as to whether they can get bounce back loans and CBILS. We've had an interesting number of companies that have been pre-revenue that have had CBIL, that have had bounce back because they're saying it impacts what they could have done during 2020. What we have is the internal intelligence to know which banks are faster, which banks are slower, where somebody's going to want to put a debenture. So if somebody's gone on to our system and has integrated their accountancy package, we're able to read the information and work out what's the most suitable route for them to go down. On the Future Fund, you've probably seen that there are, the scheme's going to be closing quite soon. The numbers of people who actually had Future Fund money is pretty damn low. Okay. The danger with doing something like this is you've no idea whether you're going too quickly or too slowly. Okay. The government's grant scheme we're now getting a significant number of people who've had money from that scheme. Yeah? And they're having to work with people to check that they spend their money correctly. Yeah? They are being quite proactive in how they lend money. What we're also aware of is, I'm letting somebody new in, what we're also aware of is that the grants that a company can get now might not reflect what's going to be available in 1, 2, 3, 4 months' time. So if somebody comes onto the Swoop system, we're able to check to see if they're eligible for any sorts of innovation grants, which often gets picked up when somebody's reading somebody's investor deck. That company, if there's nothing available now, they're tracked so that if it's in 3 months' time, there's a new launch of a new fund, they would get a response from our team saying, there's something new come up. This is the criteria. Please speak to our grants team to see if this is actually going to work for you. You're probably aware there are 2 other sorts of grants. There are the capital intensive grants. Again, if somebody goes onto our system, if there's nothing available now, the system is able to notify that company that there's now a new solar panel grant that's come up. They can see the criteria of it, and then we'll be able to speak to our grant partners who would work with them to see if they can actually physically get the money. What they're also able to do is, let's say, and we got a call yesterday from somebody who had over £1 million in a grant. What we'd be doing there is saying, great, you've had over £1 million in a grant. Let's look to see if there's anything else out there. So the client signs an NDA. Our team look at the application that they were successful with and check to see if there's anything else that's out there. And if there is, great, now let's go look for it. If there isn't anything now, great, put that on the tracking system for later on. Startup loans and second loans. I'm just checking how much time I've got, guys. 7 minutes left. I'm going to have to rush through everything. I spoke the other day to a company that had done their first equity round. The equity round was going to be enough to see them till the end of the year. I said to them, have you ever thought about looking at debt? And they went, no, we don't like the idea of debt. I said to them, what about things like startup loans? How many directors in the business? They told me that there were 5 directors in the business. I said, actually, as the business is less than 2 years old, you can potentially get up to 25 grand per director at a fixed rate of interest at 6% with up to 6 months interest fee. So 6 times 25, that could help them with their runway in terms of scaling the business until they do the next round. Okay, there are all sorts of other routes that are available. One of the things that we're good at doing is looking at somebody's existing position to see what we can leverage. You can see that something like their invoice finance. There are 2 worlds in understanding of invoice finance. There are those that will talk about that invoice factoring, and we know that's somebody who hasn't looked at it for 10 or 15 years. And they will assume that it's going to be an expensive, stuck in a contract, etc., etc. That world still exists, but for lots of early stage companies, being able to use a selective invoice finance provider where you're not in a contract, you might have 5 clients that you're working with, 3 pay you on time, 1 you're a bit uncertain about, 1 doesn't pay you until after 60 days, to be able to use a selective invoice finance provider that would get you money against that in 24, 48 hours. You only need to use, let's say when you've got a VAT bill to pay, you've got a particular need, that can be really, really helpful for an early stage business. One of the unique things about our system is that if somebody registers on the site, we're able to review their banking costs. So you register, your information with your current bank is read in real time. A comparison with 9 other banks comes back. The average saving we're getting is 1,540 quid. So for a company that is an early stage, to save a chunk of money, again, can allow them to go and spend a bit more money on marketing or whatever. Okay. What the system will also pick up is potential savings on utility and FX. And again, that's free to use. This slide here, where it says as an advisor, pretty easy to change as an advisor to as a client. So it's almost synonymous. Yeah. If you go on to the system, yeah, we will have read information from Companies House. Yeah. We'll have picked up the SIP call. We'll have picked up who the directors are. Yeah. You put down what it is that you're looking for. As I said before, you can integrate your accountancy package. You can integrate your bank account. You put down what it is that you're looking for. I'm looking for loans, equity, grants. Yeah. You put down a few very basic pieces of information. You effectively answer 7 or 8 questions, your turnover to date this year, profitability, and it would then show matches. The matches that are shown are based on the information that you've given, yeah, plus the criteria providers. So if you then press on an equity match, it would match that because you've put down that you're in the hospitality sector, but you're also doing some work with AI or whatever. It shows the criteria of the fund. You download your investor deck, and that then gets reviewed by the team. If it's on the debt side, yeah, it shows maybe 20 to 30 different options, a smorgasbord that you would look at and go, bloody hell, that looks a bit confusing. It shows you the criteria for each of them, but you then get a person who holds your hand, who works out with you. Do you know what? We've now done your credit score. We've now checked this. You don't need that. You need this, that, and the other to work out a blended solution that suits somebody's needs. Move down to the next slide. Because everyone's faces are on there. I don't know if you can see that everything on the right-hand side. Really, really easy to use. Cover over 1,000 different solutions. Cover C-bills, bounce back loan, future funds, etc., etc. You've got a specialist who'll be talking to you, and the specialists are able to talk to each other. So rather than it being, again, back to the very beginning, it being not congruent, you've got teams that are working collectively together to help you to get you on to the next stage. This is the savings side, gives you an idea of the potential savings. Our experience within the world of earlier stage companies is pretty extensive. Being a young company ourselves, we've gone through all those interesting growing stages. We've worked with people like Virgin for the last 2 years as part of their Step Up program. So we know the stuff that you go through. So in terms of Swoop, we don't just deal with boring established companies. We've got significant experience with early companies. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for now. I'm going to stop sharing and hand back to Christopher.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That was very informative and interesting. So I'm just going to reclaim the hosting. Before we get into questions, I just want to ask Andrew if he could upload the link that he wanted to upload about Swoop to the chat, so that that anybody that's interested in finding out more can just click on the link and find you from there. Unless, sorry, Andrew, you want to say something?
Okay.
Yeah.
The link is now embedded into the presentation that I did.
Okay, fine.
If you're happy to send that out to everyone afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. I will certainly do that for you. That's not a problem at all. Okay. Right, so we're now going to go into question and answer session. So if you've got any further questions you'd like to ask, then please do put them in the chat. We're just going to start with a couple of questions ourselves, and then I'll ask the questions that we've had so far in the chat. The first question I'm going to raise, which is actually an amalgamation of 2 questions. Simon wants to ask the question, Can I raise money if I'm at the ideas stage and have a plan on how to use funding to make my idea into the next big thing? And I want to merge that with a question from Ieva, who is asking something similar. She's saying, is this applicable to established businesses or for at the ideas stage as well?
Second one first, it's for everyone. Part of the reason we got the £5 million grant is our stated ambition is to make it a level playing field for SMEs. So we couldn't differentiate in terms of who we help. If it's a very early stage business, we would be doing things like directing them to startup loans, and potentially if somebody's saying, I need to raise money now, and they're looking at the debt side, potentially be looking at anything that they've got outside of the new business. So they might have an established business, they might have personal assets, and again, that's according to taste, need, and circumstances as to whether they'd want to explore that. On the grant side, nearly all of the potential grants, you need to have something that's up and running. Yeah. But you'd be able to fiddle around with the system to get an idea as to whether there could be any potential grants when you're up and established. On the equity side, obviously it's far harder to get equity when you haven't started, but we do have stories in the past where we've been able to help companies that have been very much at an idea stage. It has to be something, as you're pretty damn good to get somebody interested if it's just at the idea stage.
Okay, thank you very much. I've just got a very brief question myself, given the background that Simon and I have got in crowdfunding. We'd just like you maybe to say a few words about Swoop's perspective on crowdfunding.
Yep, that's one of the routes. Hopefully it was on the slide earlier. That's one of the routes that we do look at. And I think that anyone who's been around the block will be able to pick up cautionary tales about using Crowdcube, etc., etc. There's a seduction process where they're looking to try and get you onto the platform, and we've seen companies who've not realized the sheer amount of money they're going to have to find from their own sources, not realized that it might take that much longer to raise the money than they thought. You're dropping your knickers if you're going onto a crowdfunding platform. I'm aware that you deal with a range of crowdfunders. So the guidance that we'd always give somebody is, if it's the best, most appropriate route, it definitely can help. Yeah. But be warned about going in with too high a valuation, because then if you're going for your next round and you've been valued too highly when you were on Crowdcube or whatever, yeah, it then can create a problem when you're doing your next round. So yeah, the right source for the right sort of company, yeah, but caveat emptor, buyer beware. Go in with guidance. Definitely, I would say don't go in by yourself and talk to one of the platforms.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here from Hugh in Boston in Massachusetts. He says, how can you go about market research if your startup idea demands an international scope? And a supplementary, how can you do international scale research on little to no money?
Can I suggest that's one for you two, Christopher and Simon?
Okay, Simon, maybe if you unmute yourself, maybe you can take that one.
Of course I can. No idea is the simple answer I've got there. If you, in terms of going about the research side of things, when I say I've got no idea, there's the simple things to do in terms of asking the marketplace, the potential customers, about your idea. But for a number of people, they don't want to expose their ideas, so there's complications there. So you have to really talk about the business case for your idea rather than the actual how it works. But most of the ways of doing market research is about validating your assumptions and your questions. So if you think you've got a product that will sell at a particular price, find people, your ideal target marketplace or a niche of that. Very simply create a web page with that product for sale and a price. You can get some very, very cheap software apps to do this, and just see if you can get pre-orders. If you can get some pre-orders for your product, and the money's put into escrow, then you've got a very, very good idea that there is a market need for your product. It's all about finding market need, whether it's on a national basis or an international basis. But the main thing is trying to understand who will buy your product and at what price and from where. They're the key factors in determining whether there's a market need. But in terms of actual research material for your marketplace, I wouldn't know from the US and on the international scene.
Okay, thank you. I hope that's answered your question, Hugh. We've got a few more questions. This one's from Ken Morby. His question is the support with grant writing and submissions based on a percentage on solely success basis, or is there an upfront payment? Which we'll direct to Andrew.
Yeah. There was going to be a cost for actually writing the application and a success fee. So they wouldn't want to take anything on unless they felt really certain that they were going to be able to get it over the line at the end. So they have no interest in spending time writing applications that aren't going to go anywhere. But they will create a kind of a blend. So if there's more work that needs to be written in the writing, the success fee goes down. So it took us a long time to find a grant organization that fits in with our tech, and fits in with our ethos. There are a lot of people out there who quite happily charge running around fees for writing applications and ridiculous success fees. It took us a long time to find somebody who was sensible when they were looking to add value and would only take on stuff when they could see it was worthwhile. But generally the cost of writing the application is going to be about $5,000. So if somebody's getting a smaller grant with a LEP, so let's say it's going to be 30 to 40 grand, the process for applying should be pretty damn straightforward. So there's absolutely no reason for them to get involved in using somebody to write the application. So it only kind of kicks in generally when the amount that's being applied for is more than £100,000. But I promise you, they would only want to take it on if they can see that they can deliver at the other end. And the success fees generally range between about 5 and 10%. So you're employing somebody with a PhD type brain to make your life easier. If I can keep going on that, we've seen enough companies who've gone, oh, I'm going to do that myself, who get a good enough score, but don't get over the line. So you're paying somebody to get you over the line. Did that kind of make sense?
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for a very full answer there, Andrew. The next question is from Sue Copeland, who says, do you have any advice? I guess this might be similar to another question, but I'll ask it again just in case it triggers any new thoughts in your mind. Any advice for companies pre-startup with no trading history?
I think this kind of fits back into what Christopher and Simon are doing, is get the idea validated in the first place. Don't waste your time. We appear to have gone, for a couple of years ago, we were getting loads and loads of, I suppose you could call them the children of the Trustafarians, children of wealthy people in London, who were getting a chunk of parents' money to go and set up a new business. And when they found out that inflatable umbrellas made out of hemp weren't selling, and they'd gone through 80 grand or whatever, make sure that it works before you do it. So, and one of the things that we've also noticed is there are loads of people out there who will try and give you support, give you their time, give you their guidance, before you sort of fully commit yourself to doing something that's either going to take over the world or fall to bits.
Okay, thank you.
But Swoop isn't really equipped to spend time talking to you to give you that, because it's, if we were doing that, we'd almost have to charge to give you our time, and that's kind of
sure. Well, maybe Simon, that's something you can address a little bit later on in terms of the questions that we're going to field. Okay, so the next question, I don't know how much detail you can go into, Andrew, but Alan asks, what is Swoop's business model and how do you make money?
Oh, I thought I kind of covered that. Okay.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, so if somebody switches banks, we get a small amount from a bank. If we're doing equity work, we get a success fee, 5%. Yeah. If we're doing grants, we get paid by the grant providers that we're working with. Yeah. And if we're doing debt, we get paid by the debt providers. So there's no cost for you to use our system.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. That's great. Garda has a question, which I'm sure might be relevant to lots of people. She's saying that it's a kind of multi-part question, really. She says, how does she improve her credit score to get accepted for a loan or grant? Last year, apparently, she contacted you for a loan to run an event and was turned down on the basis that her cash flow wasn't so great. She's running an event. I happen to know what it is. It's like a festival for expatriate Egyptians and anyone else who's interested in Egyptian culture. She's running this event and she wants to raise money for the next event. And so she's wondering if there's any chance that she can get any financial support from you.
Yeah. Okay. I now that Guy has said that, I do vaguely remember. So if you're looking, one of the things that I always say is if you're looking for equity, if you're looking for debt, or if you're looking for loans, try and put yourself in the shoes of the person who'd be doing it. So if you're looking for equity, think, if it was the other way around, would I invest into this business? Yeah. And on the funding side, yeah, it's trying to think, if somebody's going to lend me money, what are they lending against? Yeah. So if somebody's lending against somebody, it's going to be that what aspects of that business would they be happy lending against? Yeah. And if the business can't show anything, what aspects of that person would make a lender feel happy to lend against them? And generally lenders will be flexible, but they have to kind of be a bit narrow-minded. So if somebody's, put crudely, if someone's a homeowner, there are more lenders who are going to want to support that company rather than if somebody's in rented accommodation. Does that mean the lender's going to want to put a charge over the property? Probably not, because that's kind of bonkers. Yeah, that's for the lender counterproductive, was to try and get something back when somebody's got a property that's worth X with a mortgage of Y. They're standing behind the mortgage people. It's not worth it, but it gives the lender greater comfort. So what if you're looking for money? What would give the lender greater comfort? Is it you've got a PAYE job that you can go and maybe get a personal loan against that? Could you apply for a startup loan? It is harder. The system is more open than it was, but it's still harder to support people who have. We got somebody who got in touch very quickly. Got someone who got in touch last year. They had been through a horrendous personal thing with abusive partner, horrible. But they'd been outside the UK, and they came back to the UK, had a brainstorm about a new business venture. Yeah, we couldn't get them funded because there's no history in the UK. Yeah, so it's always trying to think what the lender's got to work with. Okay, does that I know it's multi-faceted, the question. Have I answered all the bits,
maybe if
or?
you could put a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Garda, in yours. Was that you're smiling? So I think that's okay. So the so. Okay, well I guess she's got a lot of thinking to do. I guess. Okay, that's good. Okay, I'll get on to the next question. Rajat Chandra says that he would love to know some key points about what makes a startup have a better chance at raising capital through equity. What factors would you say hold priority?
Okay, so in our experience, when companies invest into SEIS businesses, they will generally acknowledge that where that company is now, by the time they've finished the journey, the business could have almost completely changed. So they understand that what they're doing might change. What they like is something that's disruptive, which is an obvious one. What they like is ideally where they can see that the team of people in the company are going to be living on next to nothing. Yeah. What they also like is something that's already generating income, and they like to be able to get on with the team. Several years ago, we got funding for a business, and it was a fantastic business, but the people who put the money in didn't quite like the people who were behind it. And you could just see from that point there was a beginning of a divide. Yeah, and almost when the first problem came along, everyone was happy to go their own separate ways. So they like the team, disruptive, generating income. Can they understand it? And can they see what the exit is?
Okay, thank you very much. Raina asks, what are the criteria for obtaining successful equity funding? Maybe that's a bit vague.
Yeah, so
Raina, if you want to put something in the chat which kind of teases that out a bit, then I'll come back to that a bit later, maybe. Okay, Garda has a supplementary question. I won't ask all of it, because some of it, I guess, she can take up with you privately. But she's saying, does Swoop write applications to organisations like the British Council for things like events?
No, we don't have the capacity for that, no.
Okay, that's my short and sweet. David asks, does Swoop assist with licensing agreements?
No.
No, oh, equally short and sweet. Okay, that's brilliant. I don't know whether Raina wants to. I'll come back to Raina a bit later if she wants. Oh, here we go. She's come back to us. Great. She. This is a sort of. She's given a bit more clarity to her broad question. So the criteria for obtaining successful equity funding, she's interested in EIS-ready companies, which she thinks might have been partly answered. But if you've got other thoughts about EIS and SEIS, Andrew, maybe?
Okay, I'll give an indirect answer. When a pitch deck comes through to our team, the team will score it, and amongst the questions on there is, would the team put money into that business? Do they understand it? Can they see that it's scalable? And it's, again, beyond that, it begins to become a bit vague. The funds that we work with, we have got down on our system all of their sweet spots. So if it's a fund that only invests into med tech, that fund will have their criteria as to why they invest into that particular sort of business. I'm struggling to give a clear and concise answer, as everyone can tell. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. And Rajat's come back with a supplementary question as well. He says, what are the most important elements of a business pitch deck?
Clear, concise, easy to understand. I'm not on the equity team, don't forget. where the business is going, not too long. We've got a template on our website that people can use. Ideally, the average size length of a deck should be about 16 pages. I kind of think at present that with the climate that we're going through, if somebody's looking to get equity, it makes sense to have used a deck writing specialist to get that deck done. Because their skill set is going to be able to step away from what your business is doing. So you're going to love your first child. You're going to think your child's amazing, et cetera, et cetera. So there's somebody dispassionately look at what you're doing and going, right, you've got it wrong. You need to change this. You think your child's absolutely lovely. They need to get the haircut, change, whatever it is. Yep. So it makes sense, I think, to use a professional. Yep. And that's me. That's just based on my feedback of what I'm watching going through the equity team at present.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew. That sort of exhausted the questions that we've had in the chat. Obviously, if you have further questions, you've got Andrew's details, so I'm sure he'd be very happy to address any further questions that you have privately by contacting him at Swoop. So I'm going to invite Simon now to summarise and frame the conversation that we've had so far with Andrew in the presentation and the question and answers in the framework of founders and mentors, so that we can give a slightly different gloss to the input that we've had from Andrew so far. So Simon, if you'd like to unmute yourself and take it away.
Andrew, thank you very, very much. That was brilliant. That was very clear. I think there's an awful lot of options that you guys look at. Most of them, as we discussed even before this call, are all about once a business is established and is en route, and they can access options from debt to equity to completely different business models that most people don't think of. It does seem clear to me it's very, very hard, and listen to you about raising money when you're just at the idea stage. You know, it's sort of when you're at the stage of bootstrapping a business, it's unless you're well connected with an investor base that trusts you because you've done it before a few times, or you have something extremely innovative to attract people into the let's say the funding side of innovation, then it's quite difficult for startups. But what is also apparent from listening to you here is once you've got over the hurdle of having something that's starting to sell, an idea that's gaining some traction, gaining some customers, gaining some revenue, there are quite a lot of options open, and you guys offer, well, a full range, a full suite of that. And my understanding from listening to your business model is that you take the money from your suppliers, not from the people that come onto your platform looking for money. So it's a no-brainer to look at your platform there once a business is up and running and established. I wanted to also say that although we at Founders and Mentors are concentrating on this area between idea and launch, and that's really our sole focus. That's where the problems that we're trying to solve, because that's why we believe so many fail right at the beginning. Once we can get organizations over that hurdle and up and running, then it's a very good fit to use an organization like yourselves to raise money to grow the company and grow it faster if they need money that isn't coming through from customers. So thank you very much, Andrew. And the link that you've got in the document, I guess we can share it with everybody on
we will be sharing it.
Yeah. Now moving away from Andrew, and feel free to post more questions, and we can share any questions with Andrew and subsequently about the finance side of things. If you have any questions about Founders and Mentors, about our mentor matching, about our approach, about what we're wanting to solve, please feel free to post questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them the same as Andrew's been answering questions.
Okay. wait a minute to see if there's any sort of activity.
Yeah.
I think everybody's a bit stunned from the talk, but we're getting lots of people saying that it was a very interesting and helpful talk, Andrew. So lots of people saying that they're very interested. A few people are saying they've got to go now, so I'll give it a little while. But if nobody's nobody seems to be putting a question up at the moment, so maybe if we just, Simon and I are available to chat with people via Facebook, via LinkedIn. We're also, if you decide to, we do have a question from Jake. Simon, if you could just ask about, if you could just explain a little bit more about the platform before we go.
Yeah, of course.
And then I think we're quite close to 5 o'clock. And there are a couple of other questions as well, which I guess maybe if in the context of another question that Rona's asked, which is, please could you share how to help those people with ideas move them to the next level, and how can people be part of the journey? And Jake's also requesting that you talk a little bit about ideas goals, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Jake, thanks for reminding me about saying a bit more about Founders and Mentors. The actual platform itself isn't our own designed platform. It sits on some software called Mighty Networks, which was set up for people to build their own network, which was our objective. So it's not our own software, but we use this to build our own, if you like, our own LinkedIn or our own Facebook. But it's quite different to a LinkedIn or a LinkedIn group, in that we have certain spaces on there, such as the news feed, where us as hosts look to post relevant information to the ecosystem, the pre-launch ecosystem, and articles and data and information, and also make posts from other members that have got some interesting questions there. We also, as well as articles and posts and polls and various things to keep the news feed lively, we offer some other things on the network. So all members of Founders and Mentors are connected to each other and can chat to each other and can see information about each other and can talk to each other independently of being introduced by us. We've placed up a number of courses on there, which we haven't been promoting yet. Our focus has been very much at the moment on building the right people, getting the right mentors into the network and pre-launch founders, and getting a lively community working. But at some stage, we're going to be looking to let people know more about the courses and community programs. The whole idea of the free part of the network, because courses and community programs are going to be paid parts, is we recognize that everybody in this space, or most people in this space of pre-launch founders, don't really have any money. So our profile of a typical pre-launch founder, let's say, is a hard-up student, got a great idea, want to launch a business, don't have any money. So they have very little help available to them. We recognize that mentorship is probably the strongest thing available to them, and it's mostly free. The other part is, as well as mentorship, just being able to network not only with other members in this ecosystem and other founders, and have a peer-to-peer mentorship arrangement. We're also looking at service providers that service this pre-launch startup ecosystem. They have to realize it's pretty difficult to charge people money at this stage, or if you're charging money, it needs to be small amounts that a student can afford. So there should be enough on the main network to keep people busy, keep them on the sidelines. But if somebody wants a particular outcome, there are programs, community programs and courses that are focused on particular outcomes or skills to learn. So an idea of a community program we'll be launching. One of them is called our Founders Academy, which is tasked with helping people, a little bit like an incubator, go through the whole process of starting a business from an idea, taking them through with mentorship and with tools to help them get to a stage of validating their idea and market testing their idea so that they're ready for a successful launch. We also have courses. So we've got a course, crowdfunding was mentioned there earlier. We're going to be launching a course on crowdfunding for entrepreneurs. Now, this has got a slight twist to it because it's more about using crowdfunding to forward order products and market test than it is about fundamentally raising money. And we'll have other courses where founders may have a weakness on marketing or a particular skill that they want to learn. And the courses are usually around, the Mighty Network software works in dollars, and the courses are normally around sort of $20 to $30 for a foundation course with a certificate to take people through to a particular area. But we will be running masterclasses subsequently to skill people up further in particular areas. So Founders and Mentors is fundamentally a free network where we want people to come and find out about the pre-launch ecosystem, but where there's a particular need to learn a skill or to seek a particular outcome, we have paid for areas. But that's not what we're really pushing at this stage. It's trying to make sure the free area it stands up on its own and offers enough value for people to engage and find the platform sticky. And it's very much part of what we as 12 Ronnies see as key to servicing an ecosystem that's neglected, and neglected because people don't have money. You know, our student profile sits there that people can't charge them. They can't charge expensive consultancy fees. They can't charge them for expensive products. So we're sitting in that space. We're gathering data. We're using actually founders and mentors as a case study in terms of how to launch a business. So one of our assumptions was how do we know that there'll be a market need for founders to want mentorship? Are there enough mentors? There's lots of questions around there. Now, we've got over 500 people joined the network since lockdown without really marketing it too hard. So we're quite happy that there's both a market need and a market fit here. It's how we do it. And this week we've put together from that, we put together beforehand, but we launched this week a prototype of a mentor matching tool where we're going to start putting founders being matched with mentors and seeing how that go and trying to influence the process with mentors so that we can produce outcomes that we can measure leading towards successful startups. If you remember, our mission is to help or to change the most startups fail to most startups succeed. And we're doing this through influencing the pre-launch side of things. So that's really an overview of the platform. And we're very early stages at the moment. And I think there's a lot more value we can add. And it's not just the hosts here that need to put input. There's some really experienced mentors that can help steer our platform and us in the right direction. And if we do solve this, if we can find a way of helping founders that don't have very much money launch businesses successfully, it's going to be an enormous triumph for us, but also for the economy. I mean, we're in particularly dire times at the moment with the economic outlook due to COVID. So this is our bit of trying to turn things around.
Thanks, Simon. Just two short, sharp things to finish. Hugh wants to build on your brief introduction of Mentor Match there. He wants to know how can he get partnered up with a mentor?
Sorry, yes. So the first thing to do is to fill in your profile, and in particular your expertise, to say that you're a pre-launch founder. So we know something about you on the platform, and there's various posts on here that ask you about what you can give, but also what you want from the platform. So we're giving opportunities, first of all, within the community, the free network, to tell people a little bit about yourself and what you need. The next step is we're going to be looking to start matching those that have said they're a pre-launch founder and looking for help for mentorship, with those that have said they're offering to provide mentorship. And this is where our mentor matching tool that we're now taking applications for will work. It's a little bit, we haven't got any fancy AI or matching algorithms behind it at the moment. We're learning what works at the moment, so it's a little bit of Wizard of Oz. So if you come onto the mentor matching platform, we'll look at what stage you're at, what data you've filled in, and try and match you with an applicable mentor within maybe your vertical or your stage of startup. So it's simply join the Founders and Mentors platform, and then there's something in the menu bar called Mentor Match, where you can make an application for mentorship, and mentors can make an application to do mentorship from there. And that's what we're going to start pushing really from tomorrow onwards, about mentor matching and focusing on the actual matching process rather than just building the network.
Okay, thank you. And just finally, I know we've got a couple of people who've actually just joined in the last few minutes, so I guess there might have been an issue about not realizing that it was 4 o'clock for the start, but that's fine, because this is being recorded, and so everybody will get a copy of the webinar and the questions. So not to worry if you've only just joined the call. Just finally, Simon, if you could, Jake did mention Ideas Vault, so maybe if you could say a little bit about that, and maybe also in conjunction with our other tool, Ideas Nest, and maybe say something about the difference between the two.
So I couldn't hear that properly, Chris. I thought I summed up about Jake's question about founders and mentors.
No. He also asked about Ideas Vault.
Oh, okay.
And maybe also talk a little bit about Ideas Nest as well.
Very briefly, because we're keeping the focus here on founders and mentors and the mentorship side of things, and of course this being about an event about money and funding and finance, but within 12 Ronnies, within this ecosystem of idea to business launch, we also have some other tools that other Ronnies have helped design that solve particular problems in this ecosystem. So there's two contrasting ones that I'll give you an example of. One of the tools addresses the problem of, and I've had this a lot, and I'm sure many of you had, where somebody says, I've got a really good idea for a business, but I can't tell you anything about it because I'm worried somebody will steal it. You need to sign an NDA. It's, and then you meet them 6 months later in the pub or whatever. How's it going? I haven't got any further with it. And if they're unwilling to talk about it, if they're unwilling to share, if they're unwilling to do something about their idea, we often find that nothing happens, and it's quite a common thing. So one of our fellow Ronnies came up with the idea of what we call Ideas Vault, which we put together, which is a secure vault that you store your idea in a predefined format, and it can be about innovation or just simply the idea, any prior art to the idea. You can upload files, and it time and date stamps everything and any modifications. So you've got an audit trail of when you came up with the idea, when you changed it, when you added new things. So you've got a vault of your actual idea and a tracking system of how it's developed. And then from there, the next part of it is to share it securely. So there's a share mechanism that you pick what parts of your idea you want to share, and you pick, do you want to share it under an NDA or not? So it's very NDA focused on the sharing part of it. And then you send a time limited link to the share, and you have to tick an NDA. So it's all about secure sharing of ideas, either with an NDA or without it, so to try and head off these people that say, I can't tell you anything about it unless you sign an NDA. So that's one part. The other, so that's Ideas Vault, and we can put a link onto here about that. The other tool on the ideas side of things is the complete opposite, and this is the camp I sit in a little bit more. I do understand if you've got innovation, you need to speak to a patent attorney first of all, or an IP lawyer before making anything public. And the rule of thumb generally is to speak about the business case for your idea rather than how it works. But if you're comfortable in sharing your idea and showcasing it, that's often the best route to actually making something work. You know, it's hard enough to get something work. It's hard enough to get anybody to hear about your idea in the first place. You know, I sort of say to people that are worried about this, try and get who you think would be the worst person or company to steal your idea to actually listen to you about it. You know, they've got hundreds of them themselves, and they're not going to steal your ideas in most cases. And you know, you really want other people out there competing with you. You want other people educating the market here. You don't want to be doing this yourself. It's very, very costly and to take that approach. So we've got a tool called Ideas Nest. Now the opposite. It's all about showcasing. Ideas Vault is ideasvault.co.uk, and Ideas Nest is actually ideasnests plural.com. There is an ideasnest.co.uk, but we're using the .com now. And that's the opposite. So that's load your idea. We're not trying to get you to load the intellectual property of your idea here, but more the stage of your idea, what market it addresses, and try to get feedback. This is the key part in the pre-launch stage. Get people to give you feedback. You know, you might have had an idea that you think would be brilliant for medtech, for the hospital side of things, and actually somebody says that would work really well in retail. And it's about getting people to give you feedback, showcasing your ideas, and doing all of your molding and your pivoting before you spend any money on trying to build products, on trying to even launch any form of business around it. It's the early stage of market testing. So they're two properties of assessing intellectual property and passing it through to an IP professional. But it's a range of tools around the ideas, because we are at the ideas stage, and we want to make this either free or affordable to our students, our founders, our pre-launch founders. So 12 Ronnies aren't just mentor match and founders and mentors as our tools. We've also got some more that we haven't really actively promoted around the idea stage, if that makes any sense.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you for everybody's patience, because we have overrun a bit. Thank you also for Simon's clarifications about founders and mentors and some of the other tools that we're developing. So I guess watch this space over the next couple of weeks and months as things start moving, because we're moving it pretty quickly. You know, it's we're moving fast. I don't think we're breaking things. We're just moving fast, I think. And also,
Chris, can I just say these tools have been developed or are in sort of enough stage to use, even if they're not?
No. Well, no, absolutely. I mean, I guess, you know, but we're sort of launching things and putting some marketing effort behind things in sequence rather than necessarily promoting things all at once. And also a big thank you to Andrew for his very interesting presentation and for fielding so many interesting questions. And lastly, just thank you to everybody who's taken the time out of their day to come to this webinar. This was the first webinar in an ongoing series of webinars that Founders and Mentors will be hosting in the future. So this was very much our first event. So if you've got any suggestions as to the kinds of things that you would like us to run events on, then please do let either Simon or myself know, or Jake as well, who's another co-founder of the platform. You can reach us. I mean, Simon, do you want to give an email address that people can reach us, maybe?
Yeah, I'll type it into the.
Yeah, so Simon's just going to, because essentially we are a kind of very much a kind of grassroots organisation that's very responsive and very agile to what people want and what people need. We're here to help you launch your businesses successfully, and if you have a business, we're here to help you improve, your market share, help you get more money, sell more products, whatever it is that you need in your business. Thank you, everybody, and I guess it's time to say goodbye. So thank you so much for coming. Hope to see you again soon. And as I say, if you have any questions, just please get in touch with us. Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.